Hey guys, Chapadong here, and I want to dive into NHL Made Easy and show you guys how easy this is to actually produce quality lineups within margins of error. I mean, we're never going to make the perfect lineup. We should never be on the quest to make the perfect lineup, especially in hockey, because with hockey, there's so much day-to-day volatility that as long as we're picking among the most sensible options, we're going to build competitive lineups. So I don't care if you play cash. I don't care if you play GPPs. The difference is in GPPs we stack, in cash games we don't really worry about stacking. We just kind of go where we go and focus on the better plays. On a GPP, yes, we're going to try to correlate, and we're going to use formations like three by three skaters from, want team A and three by, team B, and we're going to kind of move on from there. But that's about it. It doesn't take a lot. You don't have to overthink it. Everybody always worries about chalk and low ownership and all that bullshit, and it just doesn't really matter much in hockey, because on any given night, if the highest owned guy is like 25%, it means 75% people don't have him. How important is he really then anyway? I want you to ask yourself that question, because it seems that people always assume, oh my God, he's 18% owned. He's the highest owned on the slate. I have to avoid him. No, you probably should play him at that point, because 82% of people don't have him. You still get leverage if you play him. Everybody just hears these rules and they think they're hard and fast dictated rules across the entire board from, black and white. No. Always question what you read. Always question what you hear. And that's the beauty of DFSArmy.com, is you have the ability to come inside the Discord chats and question the coaches, question the guys that are making the cheat sheets, question their plays. That said, here are mine for today. And I'm going to show you exactly where I get them from and exactly how I do it. It's just not hard. And we'll go through a little lineup for you as well. If I started, we actually got to start with power score. Because if I started, the first thing I want to do is see what teams are in the spots to smash. And I don't believe this sheet. This is what the numbers showed me. When I averaged goals for, added up goals for and the opponent's goals against to get numbers, I got Vancouver and Toronto about the highest matchups on the slate using season-long numbers. I've got other teams that are not so great. I look over at the last 10 games, though, and Vancouver's got something going on. Either they've scored a lot of goals or New Jersey has given a lot of goals up, or both, or something. I don't know that I'm buying into that, because Vancouver's not a great team, and New Jersey has been kind of hot lately, so I would think that it would have been the New Jersey side that we should be focused on. But this is a big, big number. It kind of can't be ignored. So if some Vancouver guys pop in your lineups, or you want to stack Vancouver tonight, totally makes sense. Don't even worry about it. Just do it. But when I look at the New Jersey side, they're up off their season-long numbers as well. So, it makes some sense to use them too. About even par for the day is Toronto facing Washington. A lot of people would like to be on Toronto, but Toronto's pretty expensive. I look at Washington, and Washington's up a good bit, probably because Toronto's allowing goals. You want to be a little contrarian? Stack up some Washington. Look in the Boston side, though. Boston and LA. LA's been great lately, but LA's taking a dip because Boston plays good defense. Boston is taking a dip still because Boston still can't figure out how the hell to score a goal out on the West Coast. Those numbers aside, could either team erupt tonight? Of course. But I don't think that's going to be the case. I would be focused on those first two games rather than that anchor game, that hammer game tonight. I would try to avoid. But, you're going to see a lot of recency bias in the numbers that LA has been putting up lately. And you're going to see them. They're going to make a lot of sense. And you may have to use some of them. It would make sense, but you want to try to maybe shy away from them. If I was playing in a tournament, I might go with this narrative and try and avoid them as much as I could. So let's kind of dive in now that we've got a couple of targets, a couple of easy targets, and let's see where the numbers take us. Again, understanding that the numbers are going to take us towards LA. That's just going to be a fact. First thing I start with is goalies in the research tab, the research station tab, and I'm looking again for consistency. I've only got 6 options. I might not have any consistency from which to choose tonight. I'm looking for who typically averages points, who typically averages, 15 to 20 points on DraftKings, 15 or so on or 20 or so on FanDuel. And I look over here at the last 10 starts and I see fantasy points 20 and 15 and 17. So Peterson, Mrazek, Swayman, these names might not ring a bell to you. It doesn't matter if they do. You just play the numbers. Those are your 3 goalies to choose from. I scroll over this way and look at the consistency on a FanDuel. Who's hitting 20 points most often? Boom, Swayman. Swayman's also got the upside. 25, 30, 35, 40 points or more, has done it. The ceiling is there. Is this the matchup for it tonight? Maybe not, but the ceiling is there. Okay? And I look over at DraftKings. It's going to still be Swayman again. 60% at 15 or above, 40% at 20 or above leads the slate with a ceiling of 30 plus. Okay, so that's probably your guy tonight. In terms of a cash game, that's where I'm starting. In terms of GPPs, I probably want more exposure to him than anybody else. And that stinks because it's a Boston goalie, which means that I've automatically got to go against LA. And that limits the amount of LA I can use in my lineups. But it's 3-game slate. If you use a skater or two against your goalie, big deal. Nobody does it. You get tremendous uniqueness out of your lineup. No, that's maybe all you need. You can eat the chalk and use somebody against your goalie, and boom, you'll automatically be different. Because again, everybody thinks in terms of black and white rules, and they don't violate these like codes, and it's crap. Don't tell me you can't win on a 3-game slate if your guy scores a solo hat trick and it goes against the goalie and they got in some kind of a 5-3 loss where they shot a bunch of whatever. The scenarios happen. They work out. Don't overthink this stuff. Look at the numbers. Let the numbers dictate where you go. Tonight it's Swayman and then everybody else. If I go to the skaters tab, I want to come over here and I want to look again at those consistency numbers. Let's use FanDuel today because we used DraftKings last time. Let's go 10 points or more. That'll pull in some of the cheap guys, right? I want to see who is typically hitting these numbers. And I see Jack Hughes at 90% of the time hitting 10 points on FanDuel. 80% of the time, 15 or more. I look at an Austin Matthews. Of course, he should hit 10 or 15 points. He's a stud. His ceiling's intact, 50% of the time, 25 points or more. Jesper Bratt, 30% of the time with a ceiling. Pasternak, Marner, 30% of the time with a ceiling. And hitting some fairly decent consistency numbers over 10 points. That's a good place to start from. And these numbers do vary from DraftKings to FanDuel. Just today we're looking at FanDuel. If I come over here and I'm looking for guys that are maybe a little cheaper, a little bit out of place, I'm automatically going to be drawn to Victor Arvidsson. Oops, it's an LA guy. But I'm, maybe down here, Kopitar, oops, more LA guys. See how that's going to work? It's going to be tough tonight. It's going to throw you off. You're going to have to determine for a cash game, too, how important Austin Matthews is to you. At 10,300 on FanDuel, he's out. He's not going to be chalky. He's not going to be the chalk like he should be because he's too expensive. And so when people are going out of their way to avoid him because he's expensive, that opens up other options. They may take a Hughes. They may take a Denal. They may take a Bergeron in Boston. They may take a couple of different routes, and that spreads that ownership out a little bit because it won't all be focused on Austin Matthews. When it's focused on Austin Matthews, a lot of the same value plays show up too. Tonight it'll be spread around as people opt for a little bit more balanced structure in their lineups. Over on DraftKings, different story. He's affordable there, so you'd probably start with him and you'd move on. Now, I'm going to look for defense first for that value. Again, I've sorted by that consistency number. When I come over here, I'm already sorted. I've got down to about 50% of the time right here. Morgan Riley or better. Orlov isn't bad at 40%. He's got a little bit of a ceiling, but he's inconsistent at 40 plus. So even 50-50 is inconsistent. But I'm looking for guys up here that have ceilings and that have consistent, and I'm just not seeing it on the defensive side of things. That means defense is pretty wide open. I may stick with the baseline at 10 points and see who I can't get. Doughty, Carlson, Ekman, Larson, Hughes, Severson, Hamilton, Riley. Orlov and Schenn are getting a little bit too low. They've been a little too inconsistent, so I might try to start with these guys as much as I can. Scroll over here. And I've got Ekman Larson at 4,900, who I would probably start with. And then I look down here, 6,100, 6,200, Quinn Hughes, Severson. Severson's a little inconsistent maybe. Morgan Riley at 6,100 is a pretty sexy thought. Doughty at 6,700 if you can afford it. And go against Swayman, probably fine. But these are the numbers. These are the people that I'm looking for. I go over here. I'm trying to put as many of those guys that make sense into my lineup as I can. I'm going to come over here. And I'll be damned. I don't know where Heischer came from today, probably off an ownership report of some kind, but it looks like Jack Hughes is the play at center. 90% of the time, 10 points or better, 80% for Matthews. That's great. Matthews is clearly the best player on the slate, but again, unaffordable on FanDuel. Kuznetsov, Kopitar, Denal, whatever. You can come all the way down here probably to Bergeron, and there's Heischer right there. So if I come down to Heischer and I look, ceiling-wise, Pettersson's got the ceiling, right? See how the green lines go straight across? Come over here, look down the cheap prices again, and boom, I land on Denal. I land 6,000 on Heischer, and those are your cheapies. So that's probably who you're sticking with as much as you can. If you want to use a Hughes if you can get up to him. Look at your wings. Same diff. I'm trying to save some time to get to the lineup building and just explain to you what I did and why. Again, 80%, 70, 60, 50. There's a lot of wings to choose from, so we can go all the way down here to Connor Garland. We shouldn't need to dip below this because we've got the consistency up here. There should be enough to work with there. I'm looking for ceiling numbers again. Arvidsson, Pasternak, Marner, Jesper Bratt if he's cheap enough. 30% down here. Kempe's been on fire lately. These are all good players for a floor and a ceiling combination in terms of hockey. And again, I'm going to come over here and go down to a Kempe or even a Tom Wilson type, and I'm looking for cheap. 5,800, Taylor Hall. Bing, somebody you should put your eyes on. Tanner Pearson, somebody you should put your eyes on. 5,200, Trevor Moore, LA again. 5,400, Sharon Aganov, whatever his name is. Again, these are cheap guys. These are guys that you would want to plug in. So when I write those names down off to the side, I've got goalie, defenseman, center, wings, whatever. I'm starting to plug these guys in. I plug in my goalie first. He's the most expensive. And I'm going to start watching my average salary remaining. And I'm going to slap in names like my combination at center. I knew I wasn't going to be using Matthews. So I went Pettersson looked like the best play. Hischier looked like the best play. They're both cheap, and they're both performing pretty well. Sharagonovich, whatever. He came in next. Taylor Hall came in there. Ekman Larson at defense came in there. And I'm watching, as I'm building this lineup, I'm watching that average salary remaining. I'm making sure I kind of stay at it or under it as I go, unless I've got a pure punt. If I've got a great punt on the slate, then I can pop that guy in there and watch that salary come up and then start building from there. Maybe at the end, take a stud, whatever. But generally speaking, this was a very balanced build tonight. And this is how it all came together. I've got a couple of LA guys against my goalie. I don't care. It's a 3-game slate. I'm not going to take 3 or 4 or 5 guys against them, but 1 or 2, fine. No big deal. I've got some Vancouver guys. I told you, Vancouver may or may not be the play of the slate based on that power score. I've got some New Jersey on that side too because that game looked like the shootout. These are also the underpriced guys. Taylor Hall coming out of Boston. I don't need a Bergeron. I don't need these guys necessarily. And I'm starting to fill in when I get down here towards the bottom, these utility guys. I don't necessarily want defensemen. Look at them. Look at the defensemen. Explain to me. They may have floors, but explain to me where their ceilings are. Nowhere. Don't have one. Doesn't exist. They've got okay floors, but they ain't got no ceilings. Now, if I come back over here to the wings, again, I've got a lot more guys to choose from all the way down here to the 50% mark. But now look at these numbers. I've got ceilings here. Why wouldn't I take a floor and a ceiling? Is it going to cost me money? Sure. But if I plan ahead, I can get under it with some of the value plays on a slate, and then I can slot them in at the end. And that's why my utility guys came in at Kempe and Arvidsson. I didn't want to use LA. I didn't target LA. But as it dictated, that was the best floor and ceiling combination, barring matchup tonight, that I can get over the last couple of games. And I'm going to trust those numbers too. And I've assembled not the perfect lineup again, but I've assembled a competitive lineup. It's not too overly exposed to any particular offense, maybe a little bit of Vancouver, but Vancouver's in the best spot on the slate, theoretically. It's got no Toronto in it. Why? They're overpriced. They're not allowing me to use them. That's okay. I don't have to if I'm using a cash game in a head-to-head or a 50-50 type of contest. I don't have to outscore everybody. I only have to outscore half of you guys. And as long as I can outscore half of you guys, then I can avoid a Toronto as long as Toronto doesn't go hang 12 on somebody tonight, which they're coming off of, what, a 10-game performance? Offense might shoot the crapper or might take the night off. I don't know. What I know is that Vancouver and New Jersey should lead to a decent game tonight, and I've got 4 or 5 skaters out of that. I've got some Boston, which should be in kind of not really a great situation, but Taylor Hall's underpriced. I've got my LA guys that are running a little bit hot. They're going against my goalie, which is not a good thing necessarily, but I've got limited options tonight, and nothing else made a lot of sense. And that's how the lineup comes together. It just doesn't have to be rocket science. Hopefully this stuff helps you. Hopefully this makes you want to become a member at dfsarmy.com, because we can teach you how to build solid lineups. We can teach you when to ignore the rules, when to adhere to the rules, what rules mean something, what rules don't, and we can make you a better player. We can put you on a winning track. We've got a ton of guys winning cash every night. We've got a ton of guys winning GPPs. It's what we do at dfsarmy.com. Doesn't matter if it's NHL or NASCAR or NBA or what. We've got the coaches and we've got the content and we've got the tools to teach you how to become a better player. It's just that simple. We want you to break this slate down and build a lineup in 15 minutes. How hard was that? It doesn't have to be that hard. Stop making it so hard on yourselves. Get in here and get to learn, and we'll talk to you on the other side. Peace out.